Whitney. I also am known by some people as Crazy Cloud, and I'm here to give a brief talk about, introduction to the Buddhist philosophy and how I feel that it's really applicable to what's going on in the world right now, and how it could help alleviate maybe some of the confusion and suffering that a lot of us are experiencing because of that. But I want to start off by offering you a blessing, a Buddhist blessing. This is a Tibetan one. I'm going to sing Om, and I'm going to say Om Mani Padme Hum, which means I take refuge in the jewel of the lotus. Okay? It's basically saying I take refuge in the teachings of the Buddha. Okay? So I will do that, and I had taught myself the throat sing. I'm getting better, so I hope you appreciate it. And this is an expression of my compassion and love to you and to the world. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 May the light of compassion illuminate the paths of all beings through all time, and may all of us achieve liberation in our time. Namaste. So I really just it's a very short amount of time, so I'm going to get cut to the chase, but I'm going to talk about Buddhism for a minute. I'm going to tell you a little story that I think is pertinent to the time we're in right now. But so Buddha was a prince, an Indian prince, born in royalty, and he was raised within the confines of his castle, or his palace where his father lived, and he was never exposed to the outside world. He never saw anybody get sick. He never saw old people. He never saw anything. The father completely shielded him from what time does to people and the suffering that life does. So he basically grew up in a dream. And as he got older, his curiosity got more and more, wondering what is outside the palace. And he was never allowed to leave. So one day, he snuck out with his friend, who was basically the guy who took care of his horse and stuff, right? So they left the palace. So the first thing he saw was somebody sick. Okay, and he said, "What's that?" And he said, "That's somebody sick." And then he saw an old person hobbling down the street, and he said, "Well, what's that?" He's like, "He's gotten old. When you get old, you start to die." He's like, "What's death?" And then he saw the bodies burning on the pyre by the Ganges. And that's when he realized for the first time that he's been lied to his whole life by his father about the true nature of existence and life. He was sheltered from that. And so it upset him a lot, but on the way back to the palace, he saw a monk with robes walking, and he said, "Who's that?" He said, "That's a person who's seeking liberation in the spiritual path." And that's the first seed that was planted in Buddha's experience to kind of make him want to seek something outside of what he was born to, his being a prince. And so he went against his father's wishes and left in the middle of the night and went and became an ascetic. Okay, so he went out and traveled throughout India, studying with different people, trying to find this enlightenment, this path to liberation. And no matter where he went or what he did, he never found it. He did all of the austerities. He starved himself. He didn't bathe. He did all of the things that the ascetics were doing at the time, and never brought him closer to enlightenment. And one day he was starving. He's on his deathbed, basically, and he heard someone giving a teaching to somebody about playing the sitar as they were going down this river on a raft. And he says to the person, he's like, "If the string's too taut, it will break. If the string's too loose, it won't play. It has to be perfectly in the middle in order to make the right sound." And that's what made him discover the middle path for the first time. And immediately he went and asked for food from somebody and water, and all the other ascetics saw him, and they got super angry and basically shunned him because he broke his vows. But he knew right then that that wasn't the path, that the middle path was the way. And he spent the rest of his time meditating on that and trying to awaken himself until, he found the Bodhi tree, and he sat there and he waited until he had his revelation, which is what he did. And he's, in the Buddhist story, he is confronted by Mara, which is really a metaphor for your physical existence, okay? And it's his last thing trying to tempt him away from his path, from becoming enlightened. And when he did not engage it, that's when he dispelled it, and he became, liberated yet still alive, okay? So a bodhisattva, basically, okay? And the rest of the time he spent trying to teach people how he liberated himself, okay? So that's the crux of the Buddhist belief system, all the mythology and whatever behind it you want it for Buddhism. Now, as far as the principles of Buddhism that I think are applicable today, number one, more than anything, is mindfulness and compassion. Both of those things, there's so little of that left in the world right now that it's scary. I have young kids, and I can't believe that this is what I have to deal with raising my kids in this thing, but I have to believe as a Buddhist that as long as there's human beings here, that there's still hope, that there's still time for enough of us to wake up to stop what's coming. But there's no way to know that for sure. And I struggled with this particular thing for the past couple of years. I really didn't know how to resolve it because I feel so helpless to do anything about it. And then I realized something. The only reason, the purpose that I've been looking for my whole life to exist is to be the most loving and compassionate human being I can be. And whatever form that takes, that's enough for me. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you're going to die. It's just part of existence, right? But for me, if I'm facing death, and I can face death knowing that I did everything I could to be the best human being that I could be, the most loving human being, I can't ask for more than that. That's heaven. Because none of us know what's past that door. But if that's the last thought in your mind before you pass, I think that's about as close to heaven as you're going to get in this place, right? Because I can't think of a worse hell than dying with regret and pain in your heart, knowing that you willfully cause suffering to other people, for your own personal gain or anything. Like, there's a few things worse I could have to accept in myself as I'm passing, right? So you should get yourself right while you're here. That's what I'm saying. And, compassion comes in infinite forms. And a lot of them don't seem very fair or, compassionate, but they are. And it's because the way we're perceiving it is not right. You know what I mean? It's not that we're taught, most of us, that suffering is some form of punishment or because you did something wrong. It's not. It's a teacher. Suffering is the thing that lets you know something's wrong. It's why when you put your hand in the fire, it hurts, so you don't burn your hand off, right? So looking at and accepting suffering more in that mentality will help you deal with it a lot better and alleviate a lot of that suffering. Do you know what I mean? But as long as you live, you are always going to be hungry and thirsty and they want everything, and that's okay. The more you accept that and the more you realize you have the ability to control how you engage that. It's okay to feel that way, but you don't have to engage it or do something because of it, react to it, right? And that's the practice. And it sounds so easy, but it rolls off the tongue. And I can tell you, 30 years, and now I'm not even halfway there. Yeah, and I can easily, humbly say that without, But the story I do want to say, I'm not sure how much time I've left, but I hope I can get it all out. But there's an old Buddhist story about this temple is being sacked, okay? It's a Buddhist temple, and it's in China, and it's being destroyed. And the monks are running everywhere. And one monk got out early and was up on top of the hill, and he's just watching this army just raise this place again. They're just killing everybody that's in there. And he doesn't know what to do. And then he looks and he sees the general of the army about 100 yards away from him. And he looks down at his feet, and there's a bow and arrow there. Now, he's like, if I kill this guy, I'm not going to ever become enlightened because I took a life, you know what I mean? But if I kill that guy, all of the people down there could have their lives spared and possibly become enlightened. And so in that moment, he picked up the bow and arrow and killed the general. And immediately he was granted enlightenment, because the most important thing in the world to him, he gave up to give that to other people. And that's, again, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, right? But in the end, the many and the few are all the same. We're all part of each other, whether we choose to acknowledge that or not. But we're all bound together by what we are, the pure nature of what we are. And the only way for humanity to get to the next step is by recognizing that. But as long as we keep thinking this us and them thing, it's just going to keep happening. And each time it's going to get worse and worse and worse. You know what I mean? So that is my hope and my prayer as a Buddhist for humanity. And I really do hope that we get there. But I'm not going to sell anybody a bridge in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. And that's not what Buddhism is about. And that's, listen, all of the major religions have very great truths in them, but you have to remember the time and the place in which these things were written, and the mentality that existed in these times, and the people and the cultures that they came from. A lot of it just doesn't fit anymore. And either they have to change or they will make themselves become obsolete. Do you know what I mean? And I hope, again, that, the nature of spirituality, specifically in the United States, but everywhere, that the monetary aspect of it is taken away, because it's corrupted it so much that it's just selling false hope to people endlessly, and it makes me so angry. And I can't, again, I'm allowed, as a Buddhist, I can feel angry. I would never act on it. Do you know what I mean? As angry as I am about that, and just the way that this society is exploiting people, especially who are weak or suffering, is just, it's very hard not to get angry or upset about it. But I just have to remember that the majority of people who are behaving in those ways are doing it because they are suffering themselves, or they have had great suffering put upon them, and this is a result of that. So these are the things that we need to address with each other. Do you know what I mean? And it makes it a lot easier to forgive yourself first, because we're the hardest judges of ourselves. But once we can do that, it makes it a lot easier to forgive other people, because you understand that they weren't born angry, they weren't born an asshole. You know what I mean? It's what happens to people when they suffer, and it helps you forgive a lot of people. Not everybody, but a lot, yeah, But in the end, you're still human, you know what I mean? We're human beings, and making mistakes and being imperfect is what makes us perfect. And that's just the truth. Indeed, yeah. Well, everybody's got one. Indeed, yeah. But is there any questions, real quick? I know, because I don't know where our time is at, but. So, okay. I studied originally Zen Buddhism first, but right around the same time, I discovered Chögyam Trungpa and the book Crazy Wisdom. It was my first guru. I took on that's on my arm here. He was a rogue monk, Tibetan monk. He escaped Tibet barely with his life. Went to England. It was during the end of the 60s, and he kind of got caught up in the counterculture stuff. He was a monk, but when he got to England, he started drinking. He started sleeping with women. Not keeping his vows, but is still giving and bringing the Dharma to the West. He's one of the big first Tibetan teachers to really spread Tibetan Buddhism specifically to the West. But as far as practice goes, like I said, there's a lot of great reference stuff online in books to start it, but you have to, there's, the main schools are Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana schools, okay? They're the three main schools, but there's subsects of all of those schools, and depending on which Asian country you're talking about, there's other sects outside that. Some mix in their own religions, like Tibetans did that. Tibetan Buddhism is Bon which was shamanic Tibetan Buddhism, pre-Buddhism, and then Padma Hum from India to Tibet. So they mixed them together. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have 5 minutes. So, but anyway, yeah. So what I would say to you is, start very simply, meditate, and listen. The one big mistake I made and a lot of people make is meditating with a goal. Because there's nothing to achieve in meditation. It's just giving your mind time to quiet itself. Do you know what I mean? And it takes a lot of practice. I probably couldn't sit for more than 15 minutes for 10 years, literally. Like, you know what I mean? I have such bad ADHD and stuff. I'm like, you know what I mean? And then as I got older and my ADHD started to mellow out a little bit, you know what I mean, I could sit for longer. The longest I've ever sat for in 30 years was an hour, okay? And that's a long time. Trust me, it doesn't seem like it, but it is. You know what I mean? But, you know, the people who are monks who are committed to the path like that, they do it for 6 hours a day, you know, 3-hour sessions, you know what I mean? But it takes a long, long time to get there, yeah? And it's unnecessary, I think, for the most part. Most people, 15 minutes is more than enough. You know, and even if you want to start off with a timer, that works sometimes, so that you're not thinking about how much time is going by all the time. So, like, you set a 15-minute timer on your phone or whatever, and just meditate and wait. You know, don't think about when's the buzzer. You know, you just try to sit there. And the whole thing was, you're going to think. You can't not think, but your practice is to not engage the thought. Let it come through. They call it passing like clouds, right? So you just want to let your thoughts come and go. And the longer you sit, the more you practice, the less thoughts will come. And the shorter duration they'll stay in your mind's eye. You know what I mean? Until eventually you'll think, it's almost like you think you fell asleep for a minute. And sometimes you do. But the first time I did that, it was maybe lasted like 5 minutes. You know what I mean? But the time that I did it for an hour, it was almost 40 minutes of time that went by that I didn't think anything. It was like I was asleep, but I was still awake. You know what I mean? That is what they're cultivating. You know what I mean? And then when you talk about transcendental meditation, they start actually doing like visualization practices with it, which is a whole other thing. But it takes a long time to get there. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, there's a lot of good resources. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I found that guided meditation, if you do, like, I'll do a guided meditation, maybe 10 or 20 minutes, depending on what it is. And then if you still want to try it, then that actually helps.
It definitely can. Guided meditation is I definitely say that it works for people. You really have to find out what works for you. The problem with guided meditation, though, is, again, you're always having thoughts fed into your head. You know what I mean? So you're not truly detaching. You're right, yeah. Yeah. Some people find very minimalist music works. You know what I mean? Even I like the sounds of nature. My favorite, I have my meditation spot, my Heidi spot over in the park by my house. You know, it's right by a brook. You know what I mean? And just hearing those sounds, that nature very quickly makes the whole process happen much faster. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yes.
My boyfriend's into like music theory and
Uh-huh.
into bird singing.
Yes.
Do you recommend any sources, and also are there groups that practice that too?
So I literally figured it out myself by accident. So my Tibetan friends said that they were very surprised about that because most people have to be taught to do it. And I do think that there's some natural proclivity for certain people to naturally be able to do that vibration with their vocal cord. But I can't tell you. Like I said, one day it just happened, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like, I was like, "What the?" And then over the next day or two, I just got it to be stable and connected. And then after that, I just started practicing regulating my breath so I could go for longer periods of time. Do you know what I mean? But you can control your pitch and stuff together. Now I can only produce 2 of the 3 tones. Okay, the last one is a diaphragm, and that's what makes it real loud, and it does add the bass end of that. That is still something I'm working on because you basically have to have like opera singer lungs to do that. You know what I mean? To project like that, and that's why when you see the Gyoto monks, they'll put their hand. They actually baffle their voice because if you're sitting close, it's too loud. It'll hurt your ears. You know what I mean? They literally have to do that. Yeah. But like the bands like The Who and Alash, who are actually, Alash is coming to the, okay, yeah, but Alash is coming in a month to the Rotunda in Philadelphia and West Philly, and they're amazing, ALASH, and it's free. Get there early.